Nicholas Pettas, welcome to the Tokyo Living Podcast.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
You're a busy, very busy man, as we know, so we really appreciate your time today. I'd usually start off these episodes by having the guest talk a little bit about themselves. However, this episode's a little bit different because it's essentially going to be all about you talking about yourself and what you've done. I guess a lot of the demographic of the people that listen to this show will know you in your role as the head of Nishiatsu CrossFit, Heart and Beauty, and you've obviously done an incredible job sort of building up that business. People who have been in Tokyo a little bit longer may know you more from, I guess, your previous life, in which you really were a legend and a superstar of the martial arts and fighting world. For me, it's sort of been interesting the times where I've had some of your clients, some of your box members come in, say for physiotherapy treatment. We just start talking in general. I still talk a little bit about karate, and they'll be like, "Oh, you do karate? Yeah, I think Nick used to do karate, or you used to be a kickboxer or something." And it's like, yeah, sort of. Yeah. And so there's that side. Obviously, the expat population here is very transient. There's a lot of people coming and going. So, most people that are in that sort of expat bubble probably weren't around when you were a huge name in the fight game. And I think also people that perhaps were here during that sort of Kaktogi boom, they know your sort of fighting credentials, but I think even within that population, a lot of people don't know the story about how you actually got to where you got to. I've sort of followed your fighting career since I was a teenager. I had VHS tapes of you fighting Francisco Filio in the Fixed World Tournament, and I've read your book. I've watched all the documentaries and interviews, and I think that which is why it's a huge honor to have you on the show. But I think your story of how you came through in kyokushin and through the uchi deshi program and into being the massive figure that you ended up becoming, I think is a truly inspirational one, and I think it's one that should be shared.
Wow. Thank you very much. That's pretty impressive introduction, I'd say. Thank you is all I can say, really. I get it all the time, by the way, in the box. Members that have joined and they've been there for like 3 to 6 months, and then they come down and it says, "Oh my God, I Googled you last night." Like, I got all the trophies and the belt and everything up there on top of the shelf. Yeah. But people never look at it.
Yeah,
It sits there and it's just like, they're for training mode, right?
Interesting.
So there's something up there that they just never notice, and they go, "I Googled you last night. My God, you're like something really like legendary."
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny though. But I never use it for anything but the experience from, and we're probably going to talk about that. But the experience from being with Deshi and learning, how to work with your senpai, and that whole system that it works very well in business also, which I found. So it was like an education without knowing it was an education.
Absolutely, yeah. So I guess let's start at the start. Where did the martial arts start for Nicholas Pettas?
So I was 14 years old, and I think in that same year I'd watched the movie called The Karate Kid. And so when the Karate Kid had left like a deep impression on me. I was a kind of a chubby kid, with a big mouth on him because I was trying to like hide my bodily insecurities through jokes and laughter and stuff like that. And so I was at a party one night in Denmark, and I got into an argument with this other kid who was a year or two older than me, and he didn't like that very much. I didn't know that he was a street fighter, and I'd never fought on the street because I don't understand violence. And the idea of hitting someone just never thought to like cross my mind. So as I'm leaving the party, I'm downstairs trying to open up my bicycle. He runs over and kicks me in the head. And then all I remember is him grabbing me and kneeing me in the head and like trying to punch me and stuff like that. And I got really, really scared. And I've never gotten as scared in my whole life. And I bolted. I ran away. Luckily, I didn't get hit by a car because I ran over this massive street in Copenhagen, and just kept running and jumped into someone's garden. And I remember it was wintertime because there was snow lying around on the streets and stuff. And I jumped behind this big snow cone kind of thing. And I was lying there hiding, just praying that he would not come back and find me, because I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do if he did. And while I'm lying there thinking, holy shit, that's like the most scary thing I've ever done in my life. And I don't ever want to feel like this again. And so a word in my mind popped up, and it was like karate. And I was like, whoa, I should do karate. At that time, I didn't know that it was the influence from the Karate Kid movie. But I just thought that if I do karate, then I can learn how to protect myself. And then, you know, I won't ever have to feel like this. And so at that very singular moment, I made up my mind to start karate, basically.
Yeah.
We're in Denmark, and it's, you know, 1990, coming really close to like that summer, that winter between 1990 and 1991. And there's no internet. We had those big old yellow phone books with all the numbers of all the businesses and where everybody lives and stuff like that. And so I looked it up, and I couldn't find anything about Karate Dojo, but I kept telling people, you know, I'm going to do karate. And then eventually it got around, and my brother said, hey, I think one of my old classmates used to do karate, and maybe he could take you to a dojo. So I had no idea if there was any dojos in Denmark. For those of you who don't know, Denmark is a very small country, a population of less than 6 million, and Copenhagen has about 1.5 million now. It's gotten a little bit bigger.
Right.
In my youth, it was about 1 million people. So it's kind of like a city like Nagoya. It's, you know, it's not very big. You can get around on a bicycle in 10, 15 minutes anywhere, basically.
Yeah.
But so this guy called Michael Madison, he had an old dogi with a white belt that he didn't use anymore. And he's like, here, I'll give you the dogi. And I was like, oh, really cool. It happened to be a kyokushin dogi, and he took me to the headquarters for kyokushin in Denmark. I think there was about 5 or 6 dojos back then in the whole of Denmark that were doing kyokushin.
Okay.
So it's fairly big in Denmark for a small country like that. And this is not 91, this is 88, because in 1988, January 11th, I signed up for my first class and membership at the Danske Karate School in Copenhagen. And that's how it started. Wow.
It's funny how the Karate Kid movies are such a powerful influence for a lot of martial artists. It's how'd you go coming to Japan and telling people about the Karate Kid and they've never heard of the movie because it was called Best Kid out here?
Oh, man.
That was the experience I got. I had no idea what movie I was talking about. Funnily enough, when I moved into my current house here about 2.5 years ago, my neighbors are actually Mr. and Mrs. Miyagi.
Which, no way.
Yeah. People find absolutely hilarious.
That is funny. That is really funny, actually. I didn't realize that. I mean, just to jump a little bit ahead of here in the story, I didn't realize that the influence from the Karate Kid was what got me to Japan until I think 15 years later.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was randomly sitting watching, you know, this is before Netflix. I was just flipping channels and the Best Tokito was on TV, and I was just like, oh, natsukashi. And then it just like hit me in the head, like, whoa, it's because of this guy I'm here in Japan, trying to like follow that Mr. Miyagi, you know, sensei, you know, kohai kind of like dream there. Because I thought with the way I'm Mastats, you know, when I heard he was still alive, I was like, that's it. I'm dropping everything. I quit high school, started saving up money, and I came here as fast as I could because I like had this vision of myself becoming this, you know, student to the master.
Yeah, that's incredible. I know that obviously they released that series Cobra Kai on Netflix a year or so ago, and I can remember sitting there with my wife, and she's like, "Oh, do we have to watch this?" And it's like, you don't understand. Like everything we have, I wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for this movie, and we wouldn't have met, and we started it all. Yeah,
you just had a baby. You had another baby, right? Congratulations.
We did. Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes, 7 weeks ago when we're doing this. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Oh, so man, 7 weeks.
3 boys now. The older 2 are already doing karate. The oldest one's going for his 2nd grading next month. So,
hi. Yeah. The older ones?
6 and 3.
6 and 3. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I got 3 daughters.
Right.
Thank God I started early on. The oldest is turning 22 in December, and the youngest one just turned 18, and the middle one is 20. So yeah, 3 girls.
Wow. Oh,
I do not want to start now.
No, I mean it's a lot of hard work, but it is a lot of fun. So I guess, yeah, so when you started karate then, were you automatically drawn to it? Did it really grab you, when you started that first class in 1988?
Um, oh man, was I drawn to it? It was like walking into, eh, I don't know. It's gonna sound a little bit weird. It's like walking into a church or a temple,
Mm,
but feeling absolutely at home,
yeah.
knowing that this is what had been waiting for you. Like I knew everything. I had no problem with saying the os, with doing the bowing and up and down, and like feeling like that whole like hierarchy, regimen, and all the small details of really paying attention to what is going on in class. And like I absolutely loved it. I could not get enough of it.
Mm,
Um, I was definitely always the kid that did the largest ki. I was always the kid that was always trying to get into class, or they didn't open up until like 4:30 in the afternoon, I think. And I was always waiting outside the door to get in. And I was like knocking, because I could hear them like, bustling papers or something in the front desk. I was like knocking and said, "Can I get in? I know you're there." And they're like, "No, we don't open until 4:30. You have to wait." Like, that was the kid I was, and I was always the last to leave.
yeah.
We're very fortunate to have two dojos inside the dojo that we had. One was the main dojo where the classes were run, and then there was a self-training dojo, and also even a weight training area. So
Okay.
it was like my little playground. I could like do a class, or come in and do like some self-training in the beginning, or stretching or kicking. I used to love kicking the bag. And then do a class and then go back and do some weight training. Or there was a big park, really famous park in Copenhagen called Philiphagen, where they have the big football stadium, that I could run around and do sprints and stuff like that. And so it was like really a playground. I went from being just a normal kid to completely transformed. Like everything changed. I was
Mm,
chubby. I lost like 12 kilos in the first 6 months, and I went
mm,
from like being chubby to like super skinny. um I loved it. I loved it. I
yeah.
absolutely loved it.
Yeah. So you started this when you were 14, and then by 18, you were training full time in Japan at the Hombu. How did that happen?
Well, so the first time I heard that there was such a thing called the uchi deshi program was when I was about 16, I think. We were standing around, either kicking a bag or lifting some weights or something like that. And this one of my senpai comes over and says, "Oh, Nick, you're always here. You're like those uchi deshis in Japan." I remember there's no internet. That means there's absolutely no information. So he'd heard a rumor from a rumor from a rumor of a rumor
Mm,
of
mm,
what they actually do. And I was like, "What is this uchi deshi thing?" And he's like, Oyama Sosai still teaches these special kids, like every day. They just train from morning to night. And it sounded like some Shaolin monk temple thing, right? And I was like, holy crap. But more so for me, that was interesting was that Sosai was still alive. Because I
yeah.
thought I'd only seen him on black and white photos. I was like convinced that, this was something ancient, like hundreds of years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's like you go to class, even for 2 years, it's like no one ever talks about what happens in Japan. No, it's not like the sensei comes in and says, "Yeah, Sosai brought us these wisdom words," or the new trend in Japan is the double low kick, or whatever it is. There's no such information.
Mm,
And so when I found out he was alive and that there's a program that lasts for 1,000 days, and then the third thing that I found out about this program, that no foreigner has ever completed this program. I
mm.
was like, I'm gonna do
There's a
this.
challenge. Yeah.
This is what I want. It's on. It's game on. Yes, I went home to my mom and said, "Look, I want to quit high school and go to Japan and live for 3 years." And she's like, "Yeah, you're nuts." Anyway, it took me a while to convince my mom, and at the same time, I was talking to my sensei about it. It also took me like a couple of weeks or a month to convince my sensei, and he was like very adamant about that my mom was on board with this one. And so I convinced them both, and then we agreed that I would write a letter to Solstai and get a recommendation from my sensei in Denmark, and then see what would happen at that point. And then we have the summer in Denmark in June, July, summer vacation. So it's a little bit different from Japan, the school year and stuff, just because the seasons are a little bit off. So when we went in June on the summer camp in Denmark, the letter arrived that morning.
Oh, wow.
So there's a very famous fighter from England called Michael Thompson.
Yep.
He was a guest instructor on the camp that year, and man, it was like the best camp I've ever done. Like, it was magical. I just remember opening up this letter, going, oh shit, it's from Sosai. He says, yep, you can come next year and start your uchi deshi program on March 15th. And I was like, whoa, I got in. And then straight away after summer camp, went to my my high school headmaster and said, look, I'm quitting school because I'm going to Japan to study karate. And she was pissed. She was like, you can't just wait another year. Like, you know, you got one more year of high school. Why can't you just wait and then do like this, you know, 1 or 2 year thing where you go off before university? And I was like, no, it has to be now. So I left and saved up money for about 8 months. I worked at the dojo in Denmark, and I got a salary for that, for teaching classes and stuff, and cleaning and doing repairs and stuff. And then, yeah, 1991, March 27th, I landed in Narita Airport, and the next morning I was in the dorm.
Incredible. And what were your first experiences sort of walking into Hombu and being exposed to it? And I guess the big moment, meeting Sosai Masayama for the first time.
Yeah. Well, so I was completely like, I don't know if this is the right word, like zonked out or bonked out. I don't know how you say it. The moment I woke up in Kimiryokan, which is like a little guest house in Ikebukuro.
I've stayed there. I think everyone who comes to Tokyo stays at Kimiryokan at some stage.
Yeah,
they're coming there.
So I spent my first night there, and I remember waking up on this Japanese futon. So I'd practiced in Denmark to sleep on the floor by cutting the legs off my bed, because I knew I had to get used to getting off the floor to get up and down, right? And I didn't speak a word of Japanese, but so I'm lying on this Japanese futon. I was like completely like, I just remember, where the fuck am I? And then my sensei, because he'd flown over with me, Umberto Boots, he'd given me a map and he said, find Hombu. And so Kimiryokan from Hombu is actually not that far away. And so I had no idea where I started walking, and I walked the wrong way, and he's like, no, just follow me. So we walk up to Hombu, and then there's this shaved head uchi deshi in a tracksuit just standing there like this, you know. And then when you get closer to Hombu, it's just like, Us! Ano yo desu ka? And then you're like, oh, fuck, it's pretty hardcore. That's the first impression I had. And then I was told to sit down on the bench inside Hombu. And then my sensei went upstairs and had a meeting with Sosai for about half an hour, something like that. I just remember sitting there waiting, and then suddenly the intercom rings, and like my senpai runs over and he goes, he probably said something like follow me, but it was in Japanese. It was just really like, we got to go now, right? So he sprints up the stairs, right? I'm trying to keep up with this guy, right? We get up to the stairs, and Sosai's office is right there, and he tells me, he turns around and says, and I'm just like going, okay, whatever. He walks in front of me, says, and then I just go, and I was like,
just frozen.
Completely. I've never had an experience in my life ever like this. I started shaking, like my whole body started shaking. And then Sosai, like slowly, like behind his desk, he crawls up like this humongous bear looking creature. And then he goes, oh, welcome to Tokyo. And I was just like, that's it. Kill me now. That's it. We sat down. Obviously, there was a translator, David Bunt, who's also still a good friend. I think he's in New York now. And I don't remember much of the conversation, but the things that I do remember were three things. Sosai said to me that now that you've given up your country, you've given up your family, you've come all the way here, I want you to look at me as your father, as your teacher, and also as your mentor. And if there's anything you ever have any problems with, or anything you ever want to talk to, I'm always here for you. You can always come and talk to me. And I was like, I was deeply honored by that also, but I was also still shaking, like my whole body was shaking. And then he said, but in exchange for this, I need you to train hard, because this is what you're here for. I want you to take your black belt in the first year, get the nidan in the second year, and your sandan in the third year, and go home and become a fantastic teacher. For anyone who's done karate, this is not possible. No one does ichi ni san in 3 years. Like the degree for the first belt, like in Japan, sometimes you could do it in 2 to 3 years if you're lucky, if you're really talented. Even that's like really pushing it. I'd say about 3 to 4 years is like normal to get a black belt. Overseas, it takes longer because people don't train as much. The dojos are not always opening as much as the dojos here in Japan, but a good 5-6 years to get a black belt is a normal thing. So to get a third degree black belt in 3 years, it's just like, oh, okay, I had no idea this was even going to be possible or not. But I just said, oh. And then Yeah, I think they said something else now. I just forget it. I got lost in my line of thought there, but yeah, and that's it. So we move into the dorm, shaved head. You're not allowed to wear jeans. The uchi lifestyle is, first year, second year, third year is completely different. And if you're a black belt, you're treated in a whole different way. First years, we basically we eat the worst of the foods, only the leftover of the teas, and we work the hardest. We started the first year, 4 Japanese guys, 1 Aussie, and then me. And then within the first 3 weeks, we were down to me and 1 Japanese guy.
Yeah.
And it's just the conditions of the way it was.
Yeah.
We're 16 people living in the same little room, so our futons were overlapping. Coming from a room in Denmark, my own room with my own bed was the same size as the room that we had 16 people in now. It was very traumatic.
Yeah. I can imagine that, a lot of people might be thinking, the Hombu is like a sort of Olympic training center with, hotel style dormitories, but no, was pretty primitive living conditions, right?
It's an absolute shithole, to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh man, so many stories about it. But I mean, most of this is in the book. I've also uploaded the first 10 chapters of the book as a director's cut audiobook on YouTube.
Yep.
So if anyone's interested, you can go on YouTube and listen to the first 10 chapters of it. But
yep.
Basically, like the dorm was it was military school. A day in the uchi life, for example, it's up at 5:30 and walk around Hombu and pick up all the cigarette butts that people are throwing on the streets and clean up around on the outside of Hombu and the little park just located in front of Hombu. The Hombu means HQ. And then it was a morning training from 6 to 7. And that would be like a 3 to 4 kilometer run outside, and would be a 10-minute jump rope, and then 5 sets of 50 squats and 5 sets of 50 push-ups. And then it would be 250 sit-ups and then some neck exercises. And it took just about an hour to get through that. Then we'd had 2 minutes to shower and get ready for breakfast. And then we'd stand, sing the songs, these Japanese uchi songs, I'm not quite sure. Read up the oath every day, reconfirming our promise and our conviction to do our best as uchi. And then we had 2 minutes to eat breakfast. So basically, you put everything in a bowl. Oh, don't get me started on natto and roe eggs. It's like, I hated it back in the day. I really hated it. But I learned to love it. And then it was cleaning the dojo inside. I was assigned to the actual training dojo on the second floor. So I would clean everything, like wipe everything down, wipe down the floor and make sure there was no dust anywhere and making sure that everything was in perfect condition. Because, Sosai would come in at 9:30 and then he would like check if there's dust and stuff. So everything got cleaned every day. And then he'd have the morning ceremony from 9:30 where Sosai would talk to us about, things like the importance of changing your underwear, or things like if you ever find yourself in a street fight, make sure you hit first and run. Otherwise, the cops are going to catch you. Like things like this. Sometimes it was absolutely like bonkers, the things he would say. But most of the times he would be talking about, the organization or mindset for things and that like that. And we had a translator in the beginning because I didn't speak Japanese. But I picked up Japanese language pretty fast. Like I'd say within the first year, I could have like kind of, conversation level Japanese. So that changed a lot. But it was also because I wanted to hear Sosai's words from his mouth and understand what he was saying.
Yeah, yeah.
I gave it a real hard shot. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, even for the Japanese students that are coming into the uchi deshi program, it's a massive, change in way of life, and probably even a more structured environment than they're used to on the outside. But as a foreigner coming in and having no real understanding of the Japanese, hierarchy system, and then being thrown into such an extreme version of that, I can imagine it would have just been extremely difficult to get used to.
Yeah, I mean, the language barrier was also not helping it, to be honest. Yeah. I was very, very fortunate, though, because at the time when I got there, there was a French guy that had been there for 2 years. And he almost ended up being the first foreigner to graduate. He was too lazy.
Yeah.
Like, for real. Like, he'd gotten so burnt out from the first 2 years because he'd spent there almost the first 2 years all alone with just the Japanese. He spoke fluently Japanese and was really talented, but he just hated training. He would go in the dojo and fake it, like, you know, if Sosai was there, he'd make it look like he was doing the biggest kiais, and he'd be like looking to see if he was seeing, and he'd just be going through the motions. And then when Sosai would be looking in his direction, he would like go, shout. And it was just like, you're the biggest faker. If you'd just been honest about your training, you could have been very good.
Yeah.
And so it was a thing. It was a strange thing to see, because for me, it was like I was living the dream. I absolutely loved it. I wanted to be like the #1 student. I wanted to be the best. And like really anything that would impress and honor Sosai, you know, everything he told us to do, I would do. So looking at this guy going, it's like, you're just a waste. He ended up getting kicked out because he was too lazy. And then there's 1 year above me, there's Judd and Ligo, the American guy. But Judd Reed from Australia started as a black belt. Randomly, you know, he didn't know. And I believe him. It's like, you know, he brought his dojo over. He was already a Australian lightweight champion when he came here. And so the mindset for someone coming from overseas is completely different from when the Japanese come.
Yeah.
Japanese kids that come and join the uchi-deshi program are not kids that are aspiring to be like the top fighters or anything. This is like some place where their parents send them to go like the military school because they need like a lesson in life.
Right. Okay.
And so they don't even know karate. Like Mahashi, for example, the guy that I started and finished with, he had never done karate when he came. And I was like, well, why the hell did you come? He's like, for the spiritual side of it. My dad and mom wanted me to learn something. I was like, you're nuts, man. You have no idea what you're walking into. He became really good though. It was he's like a good brother to me now. But yeah, he started randomly because he brought his belt with him from Australia, and the first class he just put on the black belt, and then he was a black belt. It doesn't matter. I started as a white belt because my sensei from Denmark, he told me, look, man, whatever you do exactly what the Japanese do, and then you'll be all right.
Yeah.
So I just, you know, shaved my head, put on the white belt. I was happy to do that. I was a first Q, which is just the belt below black belt in Denmark. So, and I was technically good, is the way to say it. Like, I was not gifted because I literally loved it so much that I trained, and I got really good at it. So there was no issues with coming here and, you know, the technical side. I'd already had that. So it was more about the spiritual journey to go through the uchi-deshi for me.
Yeah, yeah. And you sort of talked a little bit about what the start of a typical day would be like, but then, you know, the training sort of continues throughout the day. You were doing several sessions a day. Yeah,
you do. Well, you do. As a first year uchi-deshi, we weren't allowed to train for the first, I think, almost 6 months. It was only a Sosai's class on Thursdays for the uchi-deshis only that we were allowed to do. But being a foreigner, for some reason, they let me do a class a day. So I was lucky to do the morning training and 1 class a day. And then it's like you have lobby business where you stand, like that first time when I saw Hombu with the shaved uchi-deshi going, and I'm like, shit, it's pretty intense. I was then the guy doing that. And so it's like 4 hours on duty, and then you shift. And so you just stand there basically 4 hours. And then if someone comes in, like randomly, there would be black belts coming in and out of the dojo. Like, for example, he's now Matsui Kancho, the former world champion Matsui Senpai. At the time he would come in, you know, when he gets stressed from he was at the office work at that time. And he just come in and wanted to work out, you know, do his jump rope, do a little bit of bag work, maybe do some pad work or something like that. And then the uchi-deshi they would have like 3 uchi-deshi standing around, one with a clock. This. Like that. And then one other guy would be like, you know, holding a bowl of mugi-chan. He'd just like take it and drink it, and you had to fill it up, and it was nuts. They got treated like gods. And that's why they also always look down upon the uchi-deshi, because like I said, like Judd and I, for example, we came in to be the strongest we could.
Yeah.
Like, see how far this could take us. Like, this is really what we came to do. But the Japanese uchi-deshi, they're just like little gophers, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't aware of that. I thought that it was like the uchi-deshi was sort of handpicked from dojos around Japan. It was sort of the best of the best, but it wasn't like that at all, right?
No.
Yeah.
And most of them were pretty shitty, actually. Like, I was way stronger than my senpai when I got there, and which was not a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, you get in karate, I'd say martial arts, you get a chance if there's a sparring session, you know, and you have a beef with someone, you get a chance to, like, you know, get back at them, which is fine. But when you do that, then they make your life in the dorm like worse, you know.
Right.
Rub my feet, do my clothes, do this, do that, you know. And it's just like, it's like a double-edged sword. So the more bad the worse they treat you in the dorm, the more you beat them up. And So it just keeps going back and forth like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just totally different. Very different.
And so then this lasted for about 3 years.
Yeah.
And over that 3 years, I mean, and that's at a very, I guess, impressionable age where, you know, you're maturing a lot from sort of 18 to 21. What were some of the main changes that that you felt you made within yourself throughout that uchi deshi program?
For one thing, I never thought of leaving. I never thought of quitting. A lot of other people quit, even halfway through. But it never crossed my mind. And then I think one of the biggest changes was I didn't come here to become a fighter. I came here to learn from the master and like go through this journey with him and somehow be the best I could. And I didn't understand when I first got here that would translate into actual fighting.
Yeah.
So Sosai looked at us, and remember we're 18, you know, when I was first year and we just got here. I was skinny. I was like 72 kilos at the same height I am now. And it was like, whoa, you know, looking around me, we're all like, you know, 72 kilos, 68 kilos, you know, whatever it was. Everyone was so small and skinny. And Sosai was like, "Kimitachi wa ne, taiju agena dame da yo. 1 kilo totta ra 1 kilo tsuyoku naru nda yo." And so he would say this every week because we had a dinner with him on Saturdays where we had to eat massive amounts of foods, like crazy, like big bowls of rice and soup and like, you know, pork chops and like steaks and fish and like, but lots of it, like almost like sumo style eating. And then he'd always tell us, if you gain 1 kilo, you'll gain 1 kilo of strength. And you guys are too skinny, you're too small, you're not strong enough. We're fighting in the open weight divisions in the All Japan and World Tournaments. And you know, you have to be as strong and as big as you can. And, you know, so he literally called me out almost on a weekly basis, asking me how heavy I was. And this started very early on. Yeah. He'd be like, Da Costa, you know, I don't know why. He thought I was Nicholas Da Costa, also another very famous fighter. Yeah. He got to Nicholas eventually, but in the beginning, 6 months, it was only Da Costa. So he goes, Da Costa, kimi wa ima taiju nan kilo da? And I'm like, and then my senpai, because this is when I didn't speak Japanese, my senpai, wait now. And so I'd be like, 72 kilos. And he goes, 5 kilo futori nasai. So he's like, you know, you need to gain 5 kilos. So I'm going to fast forward this a little bit. By the time I'd reached 82 kilos, which is like in the first year, I went from 72 to 82. And now I spoke Japanese, so I could answer for myself, right? He goes, same question. Like, taiju nan kilo da? I was like, 82 kilos. And they're like, well, what were you when you joined? And I said, 72 kilos. He's like, 5 kilo. So I'm like, oh, because remember, if he says something, I will do it. So I trained hard, worked out hard. Fast forward another year, I'm now 92 kilos. He looks at me. He goes, yoku natteru ne. Like, you're looking good now, all right? And I said, how much do you weigh? And I was like, oh, so I'm now 92 kilos, very proud, you know. And he goes, good. How heavy were you when you got here? I was like, 72. He's like, oh, rippa da ne. That's 20 kilos, but you need 5 more. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to fast forward another year. So I'm about to graduate. I just fought in the All Japan. I'd broken my leg in the tournament fighting the defending champ, Tamura. And so there was a couple of, you know, had a cast on my leg. So like 8 weeks, 6 weeks where I'm not really doing any cardio. All I could do was like bench presses and arms stuff. So I was just doing that and sit-ups basically for that time. And so I thought, this is it. I'm going to gain that last 5 kilos he's been asking me for.
He's going to
be I went up to 102 kilos. 102, man. And then he comes and he has dinner with us at the dorm. And so now I'm sitting up beside Sosai because, you know, you move up in the ranks. And then on the way out, I'm the guy giving him the shoe horn, right? So he's standing there, takes the shoe horn, he looks at me up and down, he goes, And he touches my chest, touches my face, he goes, Shikashi kimi ima rippa ni natta ne. Oh, I was super proud, right? Because I knew this was coming. I knew it. So he goes, how heavy are you now? And I'm like, 102 kilos. And I was really proud to say that, right? And he goes, how heavy were you when you got here? And I was like, 72 kilos. She's like, Shikashi ima futori sugi da yo. So he said, but now you're too big.
Yeah. That's funny, is it? I had the same sort of experience in my sort of two I just uchi deshi like experiences. One in Kochi with Yoshi Kazuo. I was there for 5 months, and there was this constant, you know, what were you when you came here? How much do you weigh now? And I went over there when I was 18, so I went from about 73, 74 kilos. I was probably at 78, 79 when I left. And then a similar sort of thing when I came back over here the second time, when I was 23. I was in Fukuoka with Kenji Midori, and it was the same thing. Every time he saw me, he's sort of tapping my arms, tapping my chest. How much are you weighing? It's like, what is this obsession with weight? Seriously. And then, like you said, and then when you get too big, when you cross over that threshold, it's like, oh no, you got to tone it back in. It's
yeah.
But I know Ishi Tokujin, who was a former uchi deshi, who was one of my mentors back in Australia. He always used to talk about those dinners, how the uchi deshi would go and make themselves vomit and then come back just so that they could eat more. Just it's crazy.
It was like, I'm telling you, man. The first time they told my senpai told me, look, you have to eat 3 bowls of rice, you have to eat 3 bowls of the soup, and everything else that's laid out for you. So I just thought it was a competition who finishes first. I always wanted to win. So I'm eating this. I take my first, extra bowls, finish that, and I see everyone's eating real slow. I was like, I'm winning. This is great. It's awesome, man. So I finished 3 bowls and everything. I put my chopsticks down, and I'm going, oh man, I did it. I made it. I was so proud of myself. And then Sosai goes, "Acosta, Ustando," and I'm like, what?
She's still lost.
I thought, I was done, right? And then he goes, "Okawari shinasai." It's like, so it was like, that was when I realized that I was looking carefully around my senpai, and some of them had empty bowls, pretending to be eating more food because it's like they would be like hiding the bowl this way, so I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Oh, they can't eat the food. I ended up eating 4 bowls of rice and 4 bowls of soup that night.
Wow.
And then the dessert came in, which was watermelon. And it's just like, oh my God, I can understand why people are puking themselves to get meals. Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, looking at more these days from like sports science perspective, trying to gain that much weight that quickly and eating that way doesn't really make sense physiologically. But I think there's that, that psychological thing too. As with the training, it's probably not the most physiologically well-designed strength and conditioning program. But it's, I think, the mental side that just pushing yourself to train more, pushing yourself to eat more. It's that, just doing more each time. And that was obviously what, a lot of what Sosai was about. And I can remember actually when I was living in Kochi, I'd gone from being 18, training, a few times a week, to coming to Japan and training some days up to like 6 to 8 hours a day. And it was just crazy. And then I competed in a tournament, and Midori Shihan had come to watch the tournament. And afterwards, he said to me, "You need to train more." And that was just completely, it's like, more? How could I possibly train more? But that's just the default. You just need to do more. You just need to do that little bit extra. And it's just, part of that mentality.
I mean, think about this. When we were training, the morning training was a must, for example, as uchi deshi. And then there would be the class, soul size class. So I do 2 classes a day, and then I'd like sneak in some weight training eventually, in there. And then when I left uchi deshi, the first year after, I owed them some money that I had to pay back. So I was working at Hombu as a teacher at night on the 7 to 9 class. And then in the mornings, instead of morning training, I'd go and work with construction work. And so it would be construction work in the morning, like carrying, building materials. It was really good pay. It was like, $100 a day for like an hour, maybe 2 hours work mostly. Go back, eat, sleep a little bit, then go do some weight training. Or I'd have specific days where I'd do training with some of the kohai. So it would be like, my own like design training for fighting. And then I'd be teaching at night. So it's like you're constantly moving all day long. And so basically we ate as much as we could, and we weren't, I ended up, after starting my training again, after having broken the leg, I ended up fighting around 95 kilos, 96 kilos at the most in karate. And it was lean. Like I had beautiful abs. Just looking for them. But yeah, it was a lot of training. Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
nutrition was really never anything that we really thought about.
Yeah. Yeah. What you mentioned before, in that you came out to Japan to learn karate from the master. You didn't necessarily come out to be a fighter per se. Obviously, you became, one of the most famous fighters ever. And when did that sort of did you have a moment where you started to view yourself not only as a martial artist but also as an athlete and a competitor, and really have that will to try and become a world champion?
Wouldn't say there's a specific pivoting moment, but Sosai always talked about champions, and always you went to the summer camp, for example, before the world tournament, and all the whole Japanese team were there, and it was just like you were seeing this group of people that didn't really speak the same language as everyone else. They were treated completely different. They were treated as like superstars, and they were the strongest. And it was just something about this obsession of being strong and being recognized for being strong. And so I got pretty good pretty early on. And I fought in a really small tournament down in Shizuoka. And Judd, my senpai, had just won a tournament in Kanagawa, where I'd lost in the first round. Because this guy just came in and low kicked me, and I was like, what happened there, right? It was so like, I'd never really like done the tournament thing. And so I fought in the same tournament as Judd because they had invited us down to fight. And then Judd loses in the semifinal, and I go up and win the tournament. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And that was against Tanigawa, was it? Was it?
Yeah.
That, yeah. I actually fought Tanigawa before as well.
Oh,
later
wow.
on. Yeah. I think I lost to him on weight.
Yeah.
The Teiju Hante. But yeah.
Brilliant. I kicked
incredible
him
footwork.
Max kick, I think. Gato Wazari. Yeah. But then I wanted to fight in the world tournament. This was like I think for anyone who's done a tournament in karate in kyokushin, they would want to go to the world tournament to experience that whole experience. It's like going to the Olympics basically. And so to qualify for that, I had to win in Denmark. So I fly back to Denmark, and they canceled the tournament. And I was like, well, how do I get to the world tournament if I can't fight and compete in Denmark? Because I've never fought in Denmark. And I had no idea how strong I was. I absolutely no clue. And so they offered me to stay and train and then fight in the European championships. And I was like, what? The heavyweight European championships? Like, I thought Denmark was going to be like a hurdle stone, but now we're talking like the best in Europe, like the best of the best in Europe. And I was like, well, if it's the only way to go, well, then I accept this offer, of course. So I ended up training, I think about 2 months in Denmark for it with a very good friend of mine, my senpai Mads Flakes. And then I went to Romania to stay and train there for the last 3 to 4 weeks, I think, leading up to the tournament. And then I knocked everyone out and won it. Like all Ipongach, all of them. Like the last guy didn't even fight me. He's like, I'm not going to fight you. He just pulled out of the fight. And I thought, wow, I'm on a roll here. So I went to the world tournament thinking, I could maybe go all the way.
Yeah.
By that time, I'm like super confident, like overconfident. I'm 22 years old. I'm like the strongest and fittest I've ever been.
And you had in the All Japan 2 years previously gone 2 rounds with the previous year's champion, right? So
Tamada Yoshihiro,
yeah. And then in the All Japan, you lost to, was it Okamoto in a sort of controversial split decision as well? I
think that was after that, though.
That was a year after, right?
Yeah, I think that was the 26th All Japan. But Okamoto, that decision, I've made a YouTube video about it, telling people what I feel about that fight. And that's the fight that broke my heart for karate. I was like, that's it, done for it. Yeah. But yeah, man. So I, get into the world championships, and then, I was doing really well, go all the way up, and I'm in the semifinals or quarterfinals or whatever. And this young Russian kid coming out of nowhere ended up kicking me in the head, and I lost on a ippon match there, and it was just unexpected. Because I walked in, I didn't know. No, it was Filio. Filio kicked me in the head that time.
Yeah,
Francisco kicked me in the head. Yeah.
It was watching that fight, because I've watched that fight, I don't know, probably a couple of hundred times. But it was almost like the Brazilian kick that came over the top, and it almost like it looked like it just grazed you in the eye. Like it wasn't like a big knockout. It was just it sort of just caught you.
Yeah.
It looked like it. Yeah, I've always wondered about that, because it it caught you in the eye and just sort of annoyed you, and then they
That's
gave
in the
us
eye, and it's not like it. Like technically, if you look at it again, or if I look at it, I'm thinking, I'm not sure it's enough for Wazari. I mean, it's not point karate. You know, he did slap me in the face with his foot, and I did do this flinch because it caught me in the eye. But I was completely coherent, and there was not phased or anything. It was just like getting a slap, and then I was ready to fight on, of course. But the thing is, with at that time, Filio, they were hyping him up so much because there was like so much politics in these times, and he was the thing that they needed him to go up and get into the final and win. And so, you know, the judges are just sitting. So even if it just does like this, that's not actually a Wazari. You have to actually show that you're hurt. But the moment he snipped me in the face, they went straight away with their flags. And I was like, oh, okay, well, now what? Now, how do I, I'm standing against this giant who had knocked out, Andy Hook 4 years earlier. It was my absolute idol. And I'm like fighting him myself here. And it was surreal.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then so you didn't go all the way in that tournament. You did sort of another 4 years of fighting under the Kyokushin rules up until the 99 World Tournament. Was that?
Yeah, that's true. So I stayed in karate for that period, and then 99 the weight, 97 weight categories.
Did you? That's where you fought Glaube?
Yeah. And around that time, Glaube and Filio had already signed a contract with some German guy that Kyokushin ended up buying him out of it. They promoted him and helped him manage him to go into K1 himself. And then after Filio knocked out Andy, Glaube and I, and also Gary O'Neill, we all got like offered to come and fight in K1. And I was like, after the Okamoto fight, I was like, that's it. I had an offer to go into Australia and actually open a dojo with a very good friend of mine. And I was going to take that offer. Instead of going there, I got this offer for the K1. I was like, oh, absolutely. What does this mean? So, well, you go to America and train. It's like, great, I can get out of here. So I got out and started training kickboxing and learned that, and spent a couple of years before I got good at that. It was really like career change more so than learning a whole new martial art, basically, because when you're told not to get punched in the face, wanting to punch you in the face, it's so different.
I can remember you saying on another documentary that and I think every like full contact karate fighter who's gone into boxing or kickboxing experience the same thing. But you said, like, if someone touches your face, it's like they're touching your pride. To get kicked in the head is a big thing. And then you go into a kickboxing or boxing training environment where you're just getting tapped the whole time. It's very different. It does take a while to get used to. Yeah.
I can remember the times I got kicked in the head.
Yeah.
Like 3 people that have done something to me, and then one other kid that accidentally kicked me in the head one day, and I beat the shit out of him. But and that's it. In 20 years of karate, that's how prideful it is. But you go to kickball, the first jab you get, it's like, dude, man, what's wrong with you? It hurts. But I bit down hard on that one also, and then realized that it's going to take a lot of work. And so I actually stopped karate I stopped for 3 years. I said, look, I'm not doing this. I can't do both. I can't be teaching karate in the evening and then, and trying to do kickboxing at the same time. So I left Japan for a while. I stayed 6 months in America and trained in a Muay Thai gym with Saksan Janjiro, who was formerly ranked #1 in Lumpini. Fantastic coach. I fought under a different name, kickboxing rules in America, and beat Carter Williams before Carter Williams was a big thing. And so I had a great experience with that, and came back. And in 2001, I fought in the Japanese Grand Prix, and ended up pretty much also knocking everyone out and winning again. So that was great.
Incredible.
Yeah, it was really good. It was a good experience. It changed my life for sure. Suddenly I'm just not Nicholas Pettas doing karate. Now I'm on TV, I'm on radio, in movies and acting and doing all these different things. It was a really big roller coaster ride. I wish I'd had a mentor, to be honest, during those years. Because you make all this money and you get all this fame and it goes straight to your head. You become so absorbed in yourself that you lose sight of what's really important and who's really important to you. And then money, because it comes so easy, you spend it, and then it's when you need it, you don't have it. And so yeah, I made so many bad decisions. So many bad decisions.
Really,
I wish I could have done that over again.
Yeah. I guess just circling back a little bit, when you talk about having that mentor, Masoyama passed away right at the time when you graduated. Is that
Just
about
that,
right? But that,
just after I graduated on April 15th. And so 2 weeks after that, he passes away.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it was really traumatic. It was really like losing my father, to be honest. I really was that connected to him. To go back to the karate belt, to the stories there, I did get my black belt in the first year. I did get my second dan in the third year. And the only reason I didn't get the third dan in the third year was because I had broken my leg in the Old Japan. And I just wasn't ready to fight 30 fights. So yeah, it was really traumatic.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, if I have to like sum that up, I kind of feel like my passion for karate after that kind of just like slowly faded away because Sosai wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like I would do anything for this man, but the new management and the new leadership and team that was running the organization, and then seeing it split up in different organizations, it's just like, oh my God, it's just politics now. And I don't want to be part of it. And for better or worse, my karate was my hobby. Yes, I made a great living out of it and ended up becoming a professional fighter out of it, but it was still a hobby for me. And I still consider it a hobby because it's something you have to enjoy to spend that much time on it.
Yeah, for sure.
I never wanted to be a teacher. It was never my aspiration to be a teacher of karate, because I had a conversation with someone recently about dancing. And so she said that her dancing was like everything. She'd spent so many years learning and dancing and moving, and she would not butcher her dancing by teaching it to people who cannot understand it. And I hate to say it, but it's somewhere similar. I'm kind of like a snob. It's like, I'd rather not teach someone who doesn't get it at the level that I'm at.
Yeah.
And I'd rather not do that.
Yeah. Interesting. So I guess moving forward, you've been in Japan now, what, 30 years, so 3 decades.
This year's 30 years.
Wow. How have you applied what you've learned, I guess, especially in the uchi deshi program? Because I guess like I said, it's a fairly rude awakening and a pretty big culture shock and exposure to that Japanese, the hierarchy and the way of doing things here. But then also other things that you've learned through your fighting career. How have you sort of applied that in the business world, and how does it relate to what you're doing today?
Everything, I think. Most so firstly is like when I did that career change from being a karate fighter into a kickboxer, I understand that, okay, I needed to start over from scratch, which I did. I had a fight, got knocked out, no big deal. Just like, of course, I wasn't ready to fight in the professional arena at that time. So I took 2 years off before I got another fight. And I spent 2 years like literally like learning kickboxing from basics. Like how do you hold your hand? How do you stand? How do you jab? How do you move with your feet back and forth? Like really, really the basics. And it paid off well. So at the end of my career in K1, my hips are failing me, especially the left one. The last year, while I was still training to fight, I was going in on weekly injections of lubricant to be able to move the joint. And then it was like so much trauma, so much painkillers was taken that I started getting, holes in my stomach. So I literally like shit blood. And so I knew I was at the end of my career.
Yeah.
And so I ended up getting a hip replaced. And at the time I had a fantastic sponsor that cut me off. So now I'm cut off from a sponsorship. It means that I don't have any income other than the fighting money that I've made. And I couldn't fight because I couldn't train to fight. And if you can't train to fight, you can't fight. Plus K1 was kind of going bankrupt at the time. It was really a strange time for K1 and the K1 fighters. A lot of the guys that I knew, they never got paid for their fights in the end. And so I knew my body was failing me and I had to reinvent myself. So once again, I through K1 and Fame and all this stuff, Reebok ended up giving me a call and saying, "Hey, do you know what CrossFit is?" And at the time, I was like, there was one box down in Okinawa and one partial box in Akasaka, and that's it. And I'd never heard of it. Went straight online, checked it out, and it looked like really fun. Got certified within, I think, 3-4 months. Flew to Korea, got my level 1, and then I just knew that this is something I needed to help spread, because it was something that I could understand. It wasn't martial arts, but it was something I knew that all this education that you got by looking after your senpai and taking care of your senpai, and then also having the courage to start all over, was not something I was afraid of. And so it came at a very, very convenient time in my life that I became the ambassador for Reebok for that. And it completely changed my life. I was struggling with rehab. I was spending 2 hours a day in a swimming pool trying to figure out how I could get my left hip to work again after it had gotten operated on. I got total replacement. And then I started training, started squatting very lightly in the beginning, and I'd been afraid of squatting, but it starts with squats and all these other things, lunge steps and like core stuff. And it's like, wow, I'm able to work out again. And I thought it was fantastic. And I thought, if I can rehab through CrossFit methodology of training and understanding of how the body works differently, I just immersed myself. Like, there's so much information you can get online about everything you're looking for answers for. And I spent, I think, the first year, 2 years maybe, just looking at videos and reading papers and doing this and doing that, and just using my body as an experiment, basically. And in the meantime, I found a job. So I worked as a liaison at a beauty salon business. They were doing overseas transactions, and I was like the translator and liaison for that. While I also built a business plan, went out and got a investor interested in building a gym, and I was like, this is great. So I went to my company and said, look, I've got an investment. I'm quitting because I want to go focus on this CrossFit thing. And they're like, let us have a look at that business plan. And I was like, okay, here it is. They took a look at it and said, we could do this. And I was like, what do I do now? So at the time, the shop was called Heart and Beauty. It's now CrossFit Nishizabu. But so we opened 2 gyms at the same time. I wasn't part of the company in Daikayama. I was kind of like on board as an advisor, is what I would say in a nice way. And then I ended up splitting parts with that because we didn't have enough coaches, and there was just no way to overlap the gyms. So they were separate businesses. And then I stayed in Nishizabu, and made a pretty big name out of it.
Yeah. No, it's extremely popular. And so how long have you had the gym now? How long?
It's coming on 8 years in January.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's fairly similar to Club 360.
You guys opened up really so it's just around the same time.
Yeah.
You guys also have a second location now, right?
We do, yes. We had perfect timing with our second location opening January 2020. So not ideal, but we've managed to ride it out through the last couple of years, and fingers crossed, we'll sort of come out of it even better on the other side. But yeah, wasn't the best timing, but I guess you can never predict these things. So
no, you can't. Yeah, it was bad last year for sure for everybody. I mean, we closed down for 3 months.
Yeah,
and it was just like, how are we going to dig ourselves out of this hole? All the members wanted their money back. They were putting their memberships on hold. A lot of the members just left. And then when we opened up the doors again, like in the first month, 60 new, like brand new members joined. Like in the first month, I was like, okay, this is good. This is very good.
Yeah.
So, and we're doing better now than we were before. So
I think that this whole pandemic has sort of raised a little bit more awareness around health and fitness. And I think that in the long run, fitness as an industry is going to do really well out of this. But it has been tough for gyms and for other businesses to stay afloat during this time. But I think that the ones that manage to stay open are going to do really well.
I think so too. Yeah.
I guess one other thing I want to touch on, you talked about karate being a hobby for you and fighting being a little bit more of a hobby. Did that sort of make it any easier? I know just being an athlete, once you finish competing, and I think most athletes go through this, that you almost lose a little bit of your identity if you're not able to compete. did you feel that same sort of thing in terms of the tradition, the transition, or was it a little bit easier for you because you thought of it more as a bit of a hobby? That obviously became your profession, but maybe.
It's a good question, actually. For me, it was forced upon me because of my hips.
Sure.
Like for real. If I had not had problems with my hips, I would have still been doing it today. I'd probably been like making money off it. I'd probably be running a successful gym dojo right now. I don't think I would have gone into to CrossFit. I mean, you never know, but I just don't think so. Just because at the time it was everything for me. Like, and I loved it. I love teaching. I love teaching kickboxing more than I love teaching karate. But I was really good at teaching either of them. And I still today get, not so much with the pandemic, but before and after, already being invited to a camp in Australia in 2023. People want me to come and teach, and it's just like, okay, I really, really got to think about that for a while, because for me to put back on the dogi and actually be in that environment brings back lots of fantastic memories. But mostly it just brings me back memories of shitty politics, and like, it's just, I hate to say it, but it's just shitty politics. You just have people that could have less ego, and people, how do I say this without sounding like an asshole? So I went to Okinawa and did a TV program for NHK World about Ryukyu karate, the styles that are in Okinawa. And the people in Okinawa that teach karate, like the real people, the real senseis, are passed down from their dads or their parents, and they have a little, rooftop or garden where they do their kata and they do their makiwara, and they don't do it every day. They do it 2 times a week, maybe 3 times a week maximum. So they'll do a day on, day off, something like that. They're okay to skip a day here and there. Some of the senseis like to do the makiwara every day, for example, but it's like a morning routine stretch kind of thing. They'll just hit the makiwara for 20 minutes or something like that. And they're not in it to make money. And they don't compete. And so when you don't compete, you don't have the same politics. And when you're not in it to make money, you also lose the politic aspects of it. And for me, the politics in the bigger organizations is just like, it's too much. Absolutely. There's too many people complaining about it. I even get these conversations and ask questions all the time. And I said, look, I have not put on that kyokushin dogi in 15 years. I have not seen the All Japans. I don't watch it anymore. I have no interest in it. I love doing it. That means that it was my hobby. So I love doing it. I don't love watching it. And I definitely don't want to be involved in the politics of anything like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, the politics is just, it's been the worst part of my 30 years in karate, in kyokushin and shin kyokushin. It's, being, I guess, a student and a fighter going through all of it, it's hard to understand how the ego and the money and everything just is made things so divided. But and it's really sad. But yeah, that's sort of the reality of it. Yeah.
I had a vision one time, because Hombu is being torn down. Maybe it already has. It's going to be torn down.
Yeah.
Torn down, and you got to build something else on top of it. But I had a vision that if everyone just paid one membership, like your own membership to Hombu, or if you're a dojo operator and you paid one membership, there'd be a lot of dojos around the world that could have enough money to run that place as a professional, beautiful dojo, and then everyone could come and use it freely. Obviously, it never happened, but I mean, because I was paying my membership to them for years, 15 years after, I was still having that deducted from my bank account as a sign of support for the Hombu dojo.
Really? Yeah.
Now it's gone.
Yeah.
That's all
I was actually lucky enough to visit Hombu in 1995, I think. It would have been 95. It was a year after Sosei passed away. My dad was coming out here on business trips, and we sort of followed him around, and we're lucky enough to get into Hombu. And we met Sosei's second daughter, Grace-eki, there, and had a look around and did a training session, and that was amazing. And then, when I fought in the world tournament in 2003, I went to try and visit again, and they're just, no. Yeah. You can't come in here. But I'm grateful that I got that experience of going once. Yeah.
It's all 10 years in that dojo. 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, I guess going forward, what's the future hold for Nicholas Pettas?
I think now I'm at a position where I want to expand a little bit. I have an absolutely fantastic team in the gym now, and I think we have enough knowledge and enough experience now to expand. So we're looking for expansion with the CrossFit. Very cautiously though, very cautiously. Nothing aggressive, because I mean, you guys are also doing one more location. There's 2 locations that now it changes the dynamics of everything. But I already own 30% of the Roppongi box, so hopefully I can own a little bit more of that. Yeah, to not say too much, but yeah, this is what we're doing. And then also my fiance and I are working on a completely different project with children's education, which we are really interested in doing. And then also fitness, something that we've been working on for a while now. We are launching, it's a soft launch, a website. It's called Fitness Reborn, where people can come in and try our workout at home workouts, where you start with this is for people who never really worked out, over their 40s, maybe people who got stuck in quarantine and never started back in working out, but someone who has to really start with the basics. And so, I think we've created a really good program where people can come in and join a community of other people in their 40s, 50s, the silver ages, and just do simple workouts that don't, require a lot of equipment. So it can be done anywhere in your house. And we're a little bit late on getting onto this online fitness coaching thing, but I think that once it's up and running, it'll kind of snowball a little bit, and it'll be fun to do. So we're working on that project, and I think that it could be interesting to see where that could go.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Nick, thank you very much for your time. Like I said, I've looked up to you as an athlete since I was a kid, and then seeing what you've done from a business perspective, just down the road from us, has been fantastic. I guess for any listeners who have found what Nick's talked about in terms of his background interesting, I would definitely encourage you to check out his book, The Blue-Eyed Samurai. Is that the?
Yes, The Blue-Eyed Samurai. Yeah.
And as you said earlier, you have uploaded the first 10 chapters, did you say, onto YouTube, if you prefer to consume via those
You
means.
can't actually buy the book right now. It is so personally written that I at one point decided not to sell it anymore. So the last stock of the book that I had, slowly sold it, and now it's not in circulation as a book you can actually buy anymore.
Is it available on Kindle?
No.
Electronic version?
No.
Okay.
Anymore. It's off all the channels. But I will probably end up because I have another book that I'm writing right now about that concept of fitness in your silver years. Train to live to be 100 is a Japanese book that I came out with recently. So we've translated that into English, and I want to try and launch that, and then hopefully I can also relaunch the Blue-Eyed Samurai, because I get a lot of requests for it. But I think that the director's cut on YouTube is actually pretty good. Just definitely check it out.
Yeah. Are you so how many chapters are there? What sort of proportion of the book is that you've got up on YouTube?
It's about 1/3.
Okay.
And then for people who are more interested in hearing the rest of it, once a month I release another chapter on my Patreon site, so you could log in, and it's different tiers, but if you basically get access to the rest of the book if you become a extreme tomodachi.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll put perhaps if you can send the links over, we'll put the links to that in the show notes. And again, Nick, thank you very much for your time, and all the best for your future projects. And
actually, I'm really intrigued in hearing your story, but obviously not today, but sometime you can come on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you very much today.
All right.
It was awesome.
Thanks, Nick. Bye.